You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. Volatility Views is brought to you by MIAX, one of the fastest, most efficient trading platforms in the world. MIAX is proud to bring you SPKX volatility products. SPKX options and futures are traded on the SPKX Volatility Index, SPKE, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction, all for ultra-low exchange fees. It's volatility reimagined. Learn more about SPKX at miaxoptions.com/spikes. Options and futures involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again for Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Did you miss us last week? Yeah, we were off last week for the Thanksgiving Day holiday here in the U.S. Hope you all had a great holiday with friends and family. If you're here in the U.S., if you're one of our many international listeners, hope you had a great week, relaxing week. Saw some friends, saw some family, maybe ate some great food. You don't have to be in the U.S. to have a fun celebration. Why not? But we are back and raring to talk about volatility here on Volatility Views. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever insightful Options Insider Radio Network. Reminding you, if you like what you hear and you're one of our many on-demand listeners, all we ask is that, you keep rating and reviewing. We got the numbers in for November. They're literally off the freaking charts. It's getting ridiculous. My bandwidth bills are getting crazy. But hey, we love all you folks discovering not just this show, everything else we do here on the network. Pretty much all of our shows hitting new records all the time. Another new record for the network yet again last month. So crazy times. Thanks to all of you out there who are listening and clearly spreading the word. You guys are the best, and gals. We love you all out there. And of course, if you want even more great content in your lives, and hey, who wouldn't? You know where to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Welcome to all the new folks who took advantage of the hiatus last week to come join us on the pro side. You guys are now all registered. You're all your hats all in the ring for the November Pro Trading Crate. We will give that away next week to one of you lucky members out there. How do you get your hat in the ring? How do you get access to all the exclusive content, as well as the exclusive podcast feed, as well as the giveaways, as well as live streams and a whole bunch more? Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to join that ever-moving, ever-fun partay over there. And let's see who's joining us on the Vol Partay today. First, let's go out to the southern volatility mecca known as Austin, where we are joined once again. I still believe he's a little groggy from the tryptophan, but it has starting to finally wear off. He is the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark SEBASTIan from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, welcome back to the show. How was your Thanksgiving, sir?
Oh, it was lovely. It was absolutely lovely. We had a great time. Family and friends everywhere. It was awesome.
I've heard the tradition in Texas is a giant brisket and then a giant Tex-Mex burrito. No turkey. Is that true?
No, we had a turkey. It was nice. But the following Saturday, we had some nice dino ribs that were absolutely amazing.
I knew it was something fun over there in the land of Tejas. And also joining us, this just shows you, listeners, how committed he is to volatility. He's joining us at 5 a.m. on Saturday morning, where he is. So he's kicking off his weekend bright and early, doing it the right way. None other than the Spikes father himself, Mr. Simon Ho, beaming in all the way from Sydney, strong coffee in hand. Simon, welcome back to the show, sir. You definitely get the award for the most valiant effort on the network this week, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you. My eyes are popping out of my head, but otherwise everything's good to go.
We'll wake you up here. We'll get you going here on the show because it is time, listeners, for the volatility review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Volatility Review, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down the week that was and indeed still is. In this case, we can go back 2 weeks because we were, of course, off last week. A lot to unpack in the world of volatility, including, before we even dive into all of the fun stuff that's hitting the tape right now, the reason Simon is clearing the sleep from his eyes and willing to join us so early. He does love talking about vol, but he also has some other fun stuff up his sleeve that he's looking to talk about. Simon, I know you guys have been working on this for a while over there at T3 and indeed MIAX. It is finally live, sir. The launch of Volatility Hub. What is this, sir? What the heck is Vol Hub? What makes you get up so early and so excited for it, sir?
Well, I like to hear your dulcet tones. That's what keeps me up.
I understand that, sir. Yes.
So you're quite right. We've been working on a project for quite some time. It's kind of near and dear to us. It's the sort of thing that we actually we spent months and months trying to figure out what it is that we wanted to showcase to people. But basically, the idea here is to create a hub of such where volatility enthusiasts, people who love to trade volatility, can come to a portal and get all of the information that they need. So, for example, so we're celebrating the creation of this thing, which has just only happened a couple of weeks ago or a week ago. For anybody who wants to take advantage of it and look at all of the metrics and consume data from it, it's the URL is www.thevolatilityhub.com. So it's a little bit of a mouthful of stuff, but we probably have that online for you to look at if that's a problem. But essentially, this is a partnership between T3 Index, which is a company I run, and the MIAX exchange, who we work with very, very closely. So we wanted to create a formidable array of proprietary derivative works across multiple asset classes. So our goal is to continue our leadership in this particular space, creating novel products. Just days ago, we welcomed the launch of the Volatility Hub, and the platform caters specifically for derivatives across the spectrum, including equity derivatives, fixed income, crypto indices, as well as second-order metrics such as skewness and more. So we encourage people to check out the various tabs within the portal. By all means, please let me know your thoughts and give us some feedback. This is all going to be offered for free. At the end of the day, people can download the data that they want to look at. So I think it's a pretty good deal. So anyone who has any interest at all, please let us know. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out to us.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now as we're talking, Simon. And you're right, it is a lot of great data here, including presenting data we have now in some interesting ways. Like we always talk about the term structure here on this show. It's a relatively accessible data point for a lot of people. But the way you guys present it here, it's just so straightforward. It makes a ton of sense. I'm looking at it right now, and you have the Spikes term structure, obviously, and you can look at it, listeners. You could see the slope of the graph and the data points. But you also have the percent contango for the different terms. And again, that's just a simple thing, Simon, but it's also extremely useful for a lot of people out there. So little things like that, I think, go a long way, Simon.
Yeah, I think that's true. And we also further down on the website we should have, or actually not further down, but there are certain tabs, so you can look at the futures, the options, as well as the term structure that you just mentioned. But yes, there's quite a lot in here, and we're looking to make this the premier destination for this kind of stuff. So again, if anyone has any ideas, feel free to reach out to me.
So yeah, listeners, in addition to all the futures data, which you could see here, of course, they also have the weekly spikes. They have our old friend VSPKES, which we'll get to in a little bit. Skew. So interesting skew metrics out there, as well as the ETFs, SPKX, easy for me to say, and SPKY, and yield vol, Simon's fixed income vol product, as well as bit vol and ETH vol, which you talk about on our crypto rundown program as well, kind of like effectively your VIX methodologies or your spikes methodologies for Bitcoin and ETH out there. So Simon, you're right. It is quite the all-in-one vol destination, sir. Well done.
Thank you.
By the way, you can check that out for yourselves. TheVolatilityHub.com is the place to go. I'm sure we'll link to it in the show notes. We'll retweet it out during the program as well. I think they have you guys just added a Twitter handle as well, Volatility Hub. So we'll make sure to share that out for the folks as well. We're always fans of more data, listeners, more free data for all you folks to sink your teeth in. That's why we spend all that time giving you access to all that free earnings data and stuff. The more free data you folks can arm yourselves with at the end of the day, it's better for everyone. Let's go out and see if these markets are better for everyone today. And kind of depends on your perspective. If you were looking for a little bit of a pullback, then you're a happy camper right now. We're seeing the S&P off about 0.2%, the Dow off about 1/3, and the NASDAQ off almost about 1%. So that's kind of the breakdown we usually expect to see out there, right? NASDAQ leading the charge, S&P, the Goldilocks in the middle, and the Dow a bit of a laggard out there. Still north of the 4,000 level in the S&P, listeners, hanging out right around 4,050 right now. Of course, the market's got a nice little boost from Mr. Powell earlier this week. Will this last? Can we hang out here? We asked you folks in our question of the week a couple of weeks ago of that exact question, and we'll get to those results a little bit later. Spoiler alert, you guys are all fading this market to heck and high water out there. So interesting stuff coming into showtime. Remember, we were off for 2 weeks, so all of these numbers now are going back comparing to 2 weeks ago. So it seems like these moves are enormous. It's because it's covering 2 weeks, not just one. So coming into the start of the show, we had spikes at about a 2170. That's down about 3.5 points from where it was 2 weeks ago. A VIX cash below the 20. You got a teen again, listener. Got a teen handle. 1960. VIX is the teenager again. Down 4 handles exactly from where it was this time last show. So spoiler alert, my crystal ball not looking that great, but we got a little time yet. VVIX 82 up about 4 points from where it was this time last week. Interestingly enough, our old friend, the Viking, aka VSPKES, hitting some new all-time lows. It's at a 62. That's down 34 points from where it was a couple of weeks ago. That's a new low on the show. If you're talking all-time lows, that came back, looks like back at the end of October, 57.27 out there. So yeah, we're threatening new all-time lows out there in VSPKES. So a lot to unpack. Let's go around the horn. I think he's still munching on some dino bones, but Mr. Meatball, sir, what is catching your eye out there in another interesting volatility week, sir?
Yeah, I mean, just the continued drubbing of the volatility index and the market basically scoffing off the non-farm payroll surprise today. It was, we really reacted hard to Powell's speech, and now have just kind of come and we're sitting at the 200-day moving average trying to make a decision. And, I still, looking at today, I would not be surprised if we end up the day green. We got the market was down at over 1% and vol futures were down. That just kind of goes to show you how weird and wild of a day it truly is today.
Yeah, you're right. We had non-farms this morning, and you're right. Not exactly a great number if you're looking for the Fed to rein things in, right? Non-farms not exactly lending to that narrative, and that's why the markets took a hit early on. And you're right. Now we're seemingly moving towards erasing a lot of that. So this is yet another data point in just, I guess, whistling past the inflation graveyard and just hoping the Fed's going to curtail things. These numbers, this data, not exactly giving the Fed a lot of fuel to do the easing they were talking about earlier this week, but we shall see. I'll have to go pull up the Fed Watch later on to see how those numbers are reacting as a result of these non-farms. I can't imagine it's doing great for the probability of a lower rate increase, but we shall see. Simon, a lot to unpack. We haven't talked to you in quite some time here. Obviously, we've seen a lot going on. The Fed hiking aggressively, coming out this week and now saying they may not hike as aggressively next time. Of course, this data this morning maybe belying that a little bit. What are your thoughts on what's going on out there and what's lighting up your tape from a vol perspective these days, sir?
Yeah, I have to say, I figured, given what was going on here, there's going to be a little bit of a logjam. And so I'm not surprised that the vol hasn't come down, particularly with all the stuff going on and the massive interest rate rises and so on that we've been seeing over the past couple of months. I think that this is probably going to normalize pretty soon. I mean, as was mentioned just then, you know, we're not really sure that it's going to go down any more than it will. It's already had a pretty strident move down, and so I think that from here it seems to me on a broader scale that things are probably looking to normalize a bit from here, but it is still not out of the woods. I think because with the interest rate issue going on, we really have to see what Powell and co are looking to do. But yeah, I think that for now, from a volatility point of view, I think that I don't think there's too much more on the downside.
Interesting. So you're thinking rally ho here in the markets going forward, Simon?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we've been beaten up for quite some time, so I don't think that it would be unusual for us to have market rally a bit.
Oh, you're spitting in the face of our audience, sir. 2/3 saying might be selling off a bit in the near future, because that was before Powell. Right. So maybe that will change. Our audience tends to be a little bearish. They like to fade these rallies out here. So we'll see. We'll get to those numbers a little bit later on in the show. Listeners, that was, of course, our question of the week from a couple of weeks ago. Let's go out here to the land of the futures, which now, Simon, the SPKX futures even more readily accessible via the Vol Hub, sir. What's going on out there in the land of SPKX futures these days?
Yeah, so that's obviously a core issue for us. That's the thing that we are focused on the most. So we are offering. I'm sure that on previous weeks that other folks from MIAX has mentioned stuff as well. But essentially, we're offering SPKX futures in penny increments, and we're also going to be launching options on futures as well, just to sort of broaden out the offering for people, and so that they can hone in exactly on what they really want to be a part of. So yeah, we're pretty excited about that. I think it's a differentiator from others. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting that out widely amongst the community.
Yeah, I ran into a lot of the MIAX guys at FIA a couple of weeks ago here in the city, and they were all very optimistic about all the things going on over there in SPKX futures, which again, listeners, you can now access for yourself all that data over there on the Vol Hub. So check it out. Don't let me tell you about it. You can go search it and look for it for yourselves. Out there on the VIX futures term structure, as you might imagine, the last time we ran these numbers was 2 weeks ago. So spoiler alert, they've come in a little bit since then. When we ran these numbers right before the start of the show, listeners, we had the DEES future down a whopping 3.4 points from where it was 2 weeks ago, and the Jan future down almost 2.5 points, about 2.45 points. I think that has mitigated a little bit. We've seen a bit of vol ticking back in out there. We shall see if that continues. Of course, we had a bit of a sell-off earlier this morning. Again, that wasn't enough to really budge vol, so we'll see if anything can get vol to tick up a little bit. But right now, a lot of steam coming off the front portion of that term structure, Mr. Meatball. What's catching your eye out there in the land of the vol surface this week, sir?
Yeah, they really came in and pummeled futures, but it's still incredibly steep, the term structure. When you look at where VIX is and where January is, VIX is 1970-ish, and the Jan future is trading almost 5 points higher. That is incredibly expensive. And we've seen, while the DEES future has fallen off, the spread between DEES and cash has actually widened as it falls, as you might expect. If we sit here, you're going to see that spread, though, start to starting to tighten up. VIX futures are still saying we don't think this is over, even though the market certainly wants it to be, and the cash index certainly is yawning through the day.
Yeah, you're right. Some contrasting data points out here. Simon, I know you watch the term structure a lot. You obviously have it up here on your new Vol Hub website out here. Anything catching your eye, as Mark just kind of pointed out? The term structure is still not saying we're out of the woods just yet. Still pricing in a lot of juice. Anything catching your eye out there from a term structure perspective right now, sir?
Not a lot. I do agree that the term structure is quite steep, and that's pretty interesting. Again, I guess that speaks to what we've just been discussing about the front end sort of being a bit of a laggard, and maybe there's something that's built into the market that people are sort of fearful of, which is kind of why I still think that interest rates are going to be the focal point here in terms of determining direction, at least in the short term. This is a pretty steep skew. I think it's justified though.
Let's see if the options activity is justified. Let's kick things off out there in the land of SPKX options. Starting to see more paper starting to accrete out there again after a NOV rolled off the board. Took a lot of that deep in the money paper with it. Let's see if some of that is starting to percolate out there again. Let's do a quick top 5 out there in SPKX land. Number 5, we've got the DEES 24s. So interesting. Now, out of the money calls. So going the other way now. For number 4, we've got the Jan 19. So a little more reasonable there. Number 3, we've got the DEES 25. So again, kind of hanging out in that same space. And number 2, we've got the DEES 10s. There we go. That's the in the money fund I was looking for. And number 1 size position out there in SPKX options right now, the DEES 26 calls. So no 160 puts or 180 puts or 170 puts or any of that fun. That appears to have gone away with November. Whoever was slinging that has not come back. That's a shame. I missed them. That was some interesting paper going up out there. Simon, anything catching your eye out there in the world of SPKX options these days, sir?
No, just a concerted effort on our part to try and get more people to trade it. And we think that, well, certainly the penny increments have made a good start for us. So that's good. And in general, this sort of thing is going to take time when you have an incumbent and, you're the second comer. By definition, it's going to take a little longer to get to where you want to go. But yeah, we're certainly getting very good feedback from people, and we're moving in the right direction. So can't complain.
All right, let's get on out to the land of VIX options. And, these sell-off days and then a little bit of a whipsaw action, that tends to drive a little bit of paper. And that's what we're seeing out there in VIX options right now. Already 428,000 contracts on the tape. So that's a pretty decent clip, especially when you see that the ADV has eroded down to 555,000. That's down about 40,000 from where it was a couple of weeks ago. So obviously well below the 600K level that we were north of not too long ago out there. Let's break down the top 10 size positions out there, such as they are in VIX options. By the way, still 10-0 calls versus puts out there in the top 10 in VIX options. Make of that what you will, listeners. Cost you $1.45 to break into the top 10 in VIX options right now, which is a decent clip for VIX, all things considered. That gets you to the Feb 70s. So here we go, listeners, right out of the gate. We're not messing around. Number 9, $1.49 of the March 80s, even more fun. Number 8, $1.49 as well of the DEES 40s. You're in some rarefied air when the 40s seem normal. Number 7, $1.54 of the DEES 70s. Number 3, here we go. 158,000 of the DEES 26 calls. Haven't seen a strike like that in a while. Number 5, 168,000 of the Feb 80s. Here we go, right back at it. Number 4, 193,000 of the DEES 35s. And then number 3, 208,000 of the March 75s. Numero due here, 222,000 of the Jan 70s. And number 1 with a decent sized bullet, 380,000 contract listeners for the DEES 30s. So that's the first time we've had a number 1 spot in a while. That is what I would term a quote unquote reasonable strike. We've had a lot of outlandish stuff dominating the top 10 in VIX land for a while. So interesting to see the DEES 30s making their way out to the top 10 and for top of the top 10, I should say, and for some decent size. Let's get on out to the week, see what was lighting it up. out here this week, listeners. We won't go all the way back to last week because obviously it was a holiday week, only a few real trading days out there, most of them not that active. So we'll keep our eyes squarely focused on this week, listeners. And like we said, 428,000 contracts on the tape already. The big dog today, 42,000 of the D17 puts, followed by 34,000 for number 2 of the D's 18 puts. Number 3, 25,000 of the D's 19 puts. I think I see a pattern here. Then we break it with number 4. We go out to the calls for the first and only time, 19,000 of the D's 24s, and rounding out the top 5 today, about 18,500 of the D's 21 puts. So folks, getting their put action out there. Yesterday, 507,000 contracts on the tape. The big dog yesterday, 38,000 of the Jan 20 puts, followed by number 2, 24,000 of the D's 45s. So interesting switch there. Number 3, 18,000 for the D's 42 halves. Number 4, 18,000 as well of the Jan 33s. And rounding out the top 5 on Thursday, 17,000 exactly of the Jan 23 puts. Those are interesting. Wednesday, 458,000 contracts on the tape. 33,000 of the D's 35. So there we go again, listeners. Number 2, 22,000 of the D's 28s. Number 3, 19,000 of the D's 30s. Our old friends there still active on Wednesday. Number 4, here we go. 17,500 of the May 85s. Keeping the party alive all the way out to May, listeners. And rounding out the top 5 on a decently active Wednesday, 16,700 of the Jan 50s, the 5-0s. Going out to Tuesday, pretty anemic on Tuesday, only 305,000 contracts on the tape. The big dog, such as it was, 40,100 of the June 85s. And that was pretty much all she wrote. The rest of it pretty light. 16,000 for number 2 of the D's 30s. 16,000 for number 3 as well of the Jan 30s. So maybe some rolling action there. Number 4, 14, almost 15,000 of the D's 20 puts. And rounding out the top 5 on a pretty light Tuesday, 12,000 of the D's 21 puts. Monday, a little bit more active, but not much. 377,000 contracts on the tape. 37,000 for number 1 was the D's 30. So there they are again, listeners. Number 2, 36,000 of the D's 35. So maybe some vertical action going up there. Number 3, 32,000 of the D's 26s. Number 4, 24,000 of the Jan 30s. And rounding out the top 5 on a fairly light Monday, 15,000 of the May 80s. Back to the fun in May, listeners. Mr. Meatball's kind of an interesting week. Not the most explosive of volume weeks out there. Got some weird prints like the May 80s and a few other things lighting it up this week. Anything catching your eye out there in VIX options this week, sir?
It was a light week, kind of across the board for VIX. Did not do a ton of volume. SPKX was busy, but VIX itself, not particularly busy. The thing that struck me today was that we saw like a big variance trade go up. They did the 18, 19, 20, 21 puts. They did the 23, 24, 26, and 29 calls, all 88,196 of them. So that is likely a big variance trade that's up against some sort of over-the-counter trade. So watching that one closely. And then on some of the other days that we saw action, not a lot going on. Yesterday, they bought some Jan 20 puts, some Jan 23 puts, and like a 1x2 trade. That's Thursday. Wednesday, we had a big 28-35 kind of call spread go up. Nothing really overly exciting there either. And Tuesday, nothing huge. Again, D's puts going up, and some, like you said, some Jan 85, 30-85 ratio spreads appear to have traded. Worth noting, and that seems to be about all she's really wrote today.
Yeah, not a ton of mind-blowing paper hitting the tape out there last week in VIX options, listeners. Instead, let's keep on rolling down the volatility dial. Let's get to the world of all the ETPs out there, including our newest additions. We've got SPKX, so the non-levered, shall we say, ETF out there for spikes at about a 22.20 when we kicked off the show. That's down about 3.2 points. And then if you want a little spice in your life, we've got Spiky out there. Spiky, 2030 down about 4.3 points. That is, of course, the levered 1.5x spikes ETP out there. Simon, I know you're not busy talking to us. You're busy cranking away on all things convexity shares and trying to get more action going on with SPKX and SPKY. What's been lighting up your tape out there of late, sir?
Yeah, so this is a slow burner. They typically are. I mean, these are two new ETFs which come from the convexity share stable, which is aligned with us. And yeah, it's one of those things, unfortunately, it's going to take a little time. I mean, you've got those incumbents, they've been around for a long period of time. We offer the lowest fees, which is not always, everything, as people know that. But we are certainly getting far more interest. In fact, in the past week, specifically, there's been quite a lot of build-up in interest with us. And so that's kind of a really good sign. But yeah, let's face it, these sorts of things, whenever you launch new products, no matter what it is, it's going to take some time for people to recognize and also for people to become comfortable with it. So yeah, we're fine about that because that's just part and parcel of what happens when you launch new products. So yeah, we're pretty pleased with where it is.
It does seem like the options folks are flocking out there to the levered product more so than the traditional one-to-one type product out there. We see that also reflected in products like SVIX and UVIX. UVIX taking the lion's share of the options action. In fact, looking right now, and in terms of options positions, we actually got a couple hundred open here for the DS54s in SPKY, and then some decent size as well on the 27s and the 20 puts in December as well. So starting to see some options percolate out there in the levered product versus the more traditional product. Is that what you expected, Simon, or is that a bit of a surprise? Folks flocking more to the levered product?
Oh, not at all. I mean, the levered product is obviously the sexiest thing in town. The issue eventually becomes, what happens when something really blows up, as we saw in February 2018. Now, that was a long time ago. So, obviously, everybody knows the folks who do this, and it's good on them. I mean, it's an absolute burner. So from their point of view, it's fantastic. We took a far more cautious approach, I suppose, and that's we live with that, and we're fine with that because who knows, if something really really bad were to happen, then it would be extremely negative. But that's obviously a very low probability bet as well.
Let's get out to some of those aforementioned vol ETPs out there. Let's get out to SVIX. Again, the inverse product that caused all the hand-wringing, all the consternation, trading 1440 right now, up 1.5 points on the week. I'm curious for all of you out there who are trading SVIX, the few of you who are out there, what are your thoughts on this performance compared to what we've seen out there in VIX? Is this the amount of upside you were hoping for? Are you satisfied, dissatisfied? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know. Because it is a product that still seems to be, at least from an options perspective, seems to be struggling for an audience. Only 238 contracts on the tape today. The ADV is going in the wrong direction. It's barely over 1,000, down another 200 since our last show a couple of weeks ago. So it doesn't seem like SVIX is attracting a huge audience, and maybe the fact that it's only up 1.5 points in the last couple of weeks when VIX itself is kind of fallen off a cliff. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I'm curious. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn. Maybe you love it. I'm curious. I want to hear from the SVIX diehards out there. Hit me up. Let me know. And also our friend out there, UVIX, the levered friend out there, 640 when we're kicking off the show here, down about 1.85, almost 2 points. So UVIX doing its best to supplant UVXY. We'll get to that in a little bit out there. Doing some paper as well. 7,000 contracts already on the tape today for UVIX. So you're talking just orders of magnitude more interest in UVIX than in SVIX. The ADV is about 7,000. So UVIX already there. We talked about it before. UVIX seems to hit its spurts on Friday, on the weekly expiration day. So that probably is one of the reasons why our frame of reference perhaps is a little bit skewed when it comes to the action out there in UVIX. In terms of what is lighting it up out there today, we have 1,810 of the Ds expiring next week on the 9th. 7 calls. So nearly 2,000 of those going up today. That is interesting. Again, those are about 60-cent out of the money calls. Looks like paper is overwriting the heck out of those. Listen, they sold most of them for 20 cents. Looks like they sold pretty much all of them for 20 cents. So interesting. You like that, listeners? Selling the D7s expiring next week in UVIX for 20 cents. Looks good right now, but then again, we know UVIX can pop. So intriguing trades out there. In terms of the top positions, what are the size positions out there in UVIX? This could also explain it too. The number one size position out there, about 2,000 of the 7 calls expiring today. So perhaps we've got a little bit of a roll going on out there. Let me look really quickly and see. No, I don't see. They're not taking the today leg off. They're just letting that go out, I guess. But it is interesting. We're seeing similar size on the 7s for this week and exact same size pretty much going up for next week. Followed by number 2, 2,000 as well of the Ds 18 puts. Number 3, 1,284 of the Ds 11 puts. Number 4, about 1,200 of the Ds 30 calls. Interesting. And then number 5, we've got 1,000 of the Jan 15 puts. So kind of all over the place from a strike perspective out here in UVIX, which is also interesting. Mr. Meatball, I know you've been more interested in UVIX from the start, putting up some numbers out there today. I think catching your eye out there in UVIX, or if you want SVIX this week, sir.
Yeah, UVIX continues to be active. It moves a lot. Pretty active, kind of an active day today. Biggest trade today so far. They got a buyer of the December 9, 7 calls, which is interesting. That's been driving. And then we got some longer dated stuff going up to trade as well. But as a whole, yeah, UVIX has definitely been the shiny new toy in the vol space. SVIX, the option contract's not as much. I'm kind of surprised that this thing has not seen more kind of trading as a stock, because that would make some sense. The average volume is all the way up to about 2.8 million, but nothing compared to UVIX, which continues to just, I think, take volume from UVXY and will continue to do so.
Do you think they bought those D7s for next week? You think they bought those in UVIX this week, or do you think they sold them? It looks like they sold them to me.
I'm going to tell you. They traded 20 cents. So that's currently the offer. So they could have been currently the mid price. Could have been a sale or could have been a bid. I'm not completely certain. That would make some sense as a potential call sale. But what's kind of throwing me off is that the vol is up. So my guess is they bought.
My first inclination, whenever I see these kind of prints, I usually assume it's a buy because that's kind of how a lot of these products like to trade. But the execution made me think sale. So it's kind of a bit of both out there, which is kind of interesting. I guess we'll find out, listeners. What do you think? What would you rather do, listeners? Buy or sell the D7s going out next week for 20 cents? I know which way I would rather go, but I'm curious which way you folks are leaning out there. Let's get on out to our once forgotten friend. Oh, no, before we even get there, how could I skip over the ever-eroding UVXY? This thing is on a race to zero like we haven't seen out there in quite some time, listeners. 730 right now, 7.3, down 1.5 points from where it was 2 weeks ago. And, man, just racing towards reverse Splitsville. I was joking with the Rock Lobster yesterday on the option block that how nice would it be if they came in and did a 10-for-1 split, reverse split, I should say, out here. Man, seeing a UVXY with a 70 handle, oh, that would be a gift to the masses, listeners out there. I don't think they're going to do that. They'll probably do the old 6-for-1, something along those lines. But intriguing stuff. We are starting to get in that range, listeners, where it does seem like a split is nigh. We'll keep an eye on that for you, listener. Maybe we'll know, hopefully, even if this continues, maybe even by our show next week. Today, seeing some paper out there, 170,000 contracts on the tape. And the ADV continuing to tick up, 253,000, so just north of 250,000 contracts for UVXY. It's up about 10,000 from this time last week. So in spite of UVIX creeping up in the rearview mirror, UVXY continuing to add some ADV out there. Let's do some top positions out here in UVXY this week. Let's do a top 5 out here. Number 5, we've got 18,000 of the DS9 calls. Number 4, 19, almost 20,000 of the Jan 10s. Number 3, about 20,000 of the DS39s. I love the strikes out here. Number 2, we've got 20,000 of the DS expiring today. 8s. So interesting. 20,000 of the 8s. And then number 1, we've got almost 21,000 of the Jan 75. So right back up to it, listeners. In terms of what's going on, or we should say what's going up out there today, we've got some action, including the 7/2 today. 7/2, I should say, going out today. 22,000 of those going up. A lot of that opening. So we got, as is the case with UVXY, folks playing fast and loose and close to the fire. We're trading the 730, 7/2, lighting it up out there today. Interesting. Maybe this whole zero DTE thing is moving into products like UVXY as well. Interesting. Everyone's obsessed. Zero DTE stuff these days. You want to hear more about that? Check out the great pro Q&A we did earlier this week with the flow master himself, Mr. Henry Schwartz. We got all into the numbers and the data. What are folks trading in these 0 day to expiration SPX and other contracts? It's pretty fascinating stuff. You can check it out over there. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go find that. Number 2, about 14,000 of the D's 7/2 expiring next week. So that's kind of the strike we were just talking about. Number 3, we got 7,800 of the D's 8s expiring next week. Number 4, we've got 7,000 of the 7/2 puts going out today. And number 5, 6,000 of the 7 calls going out next week. Let's go on out quickly before we get to that, really quickly, Simon, I was just talking about this whole zero DTE phenomenon. It really seems like it's just taken the options world by storm. I mean, they come out, they list a few extra expirations, and it seems like the options world collectively loses its mind. Over 40% of S volume some days is these freaking zero DTE things. And it's retail trading them, a ton of retail trading them. It's also funds getting in on the action now, which is mind-blowing. What are your thoughts? Have you been bitten by the zero DTE bug? And what are your thoughts on this kind of extreme paper we're seeing these days, sir?
No, to be honest, I've been spending the bulk of my time sort of getting these products up and running. So to be fair, I'm not really clued into that kind of stuff. It sounds pretty interesting though. Like it sounds like something I should know more about, but unfortunately, no, I don't.
Mr. Meatball, you said this is kind of exclusively what you trade now. What is it that has sucked you into the black hole of zero DTE SPX, sir?
I mean, do you know how nice it is to go home with no position? Good or bad? Do you know how nice that is?
That is a good feeling. Yes, I could certainly. I
mean, to be able to trade every day and then have cash as a position overnight is the best feeling on the planet. That is why I like them so much. I love the gamma. I love the ability to trade around them. They are, like I said, I absolutely love them.
Well, clearly you folks out there love them too. A lot of retail flocking. If you had told me with the SPX around 4,000, we'd see a ton of retail flocking into these zero DTE SPX contracts, I would have said you were a crazy person just a few years ago. And yet that is where we are right now. Are you trading these up? Chances are you are, listeners, because the numbers don't lie. I'm curious. Send it in. Hit us up. Let us know. What are you doing? Are you premium harvesting? Are you doing fun zero DTE butterflies or something? Hit us up. Let us know. Again, we broke down some of the trading data we're seeing out there with Henry this week, but I'm always interested to hear your anecdotal data, what it is you're actually up to out there. Let's see what VXX is up to out here really quickly. This was the one that time kind of forgot, now starting to come back on the radar, starting to do what it's supposed to at least. 1460 when we kicked off the show, down almost 2 points, about 1.9 points out there in VXX land, and it's lost even more. It's down to about 14.5 right now, so that puts it pretty much down about 2 points exactly from where it was this time 2 weeks ago. In terms of paper, how much paper on the tape? Actually a decent day for VXX, starting to get some of his mojo back. 55,000 contracts on the tape today. The ADV is 59,000. It's been there forever. It's been unched at 59,000 for at least a few weeks now. It's like today's paper may change that, may start to see that start to tick up again. Are you trading VXX again, listeners? Is it back on your radar? Starting to do what it's supposed to do out there again? Or maybe are you a once bitten, twice shy kind of person? Once you've seen Barclays wash their hands of it, maybe you have less confidence in the product going forward. I wouldn't blame you for that either. I'm curious. Hit us up on that one as well. A lot of queries for you folks out there today, listeners. In terms of top positions, let's do a quick top 5 out here. 12,000 for number 5 of the D17 calls. Number 4, also 12,000 of the March 25 calls. Number 3, 15,000 of the VXX1. So the pre-split adjusted 3 puts in January. Number 2, 15,000 of the March 20s in the number 1 position out there in VXX. 20,000 of the Jan 17 puts. Man, how the mighty have fallen. There were many days back, not that long ago on the show, where VXX used to rival, if not exceed, VIX for options flow. And these days, it's pretty much a tenth of it. So, man, Barclays certainly did a number on this product. Mark, you said you were watching this again. Have you started to dip your toes back in those waters yet, or is it still too soon? Your fingers are still too burned from the last time.
I've never really been a big, huge VXX trader, but it's the best. If you want to know what a normalized 30-day future is doing on that specific day, it's the best thing to look at. So it's on my quotes. It's not something I trade actively anymore, but it is definitely something I watch.
Yes, you use it more of an indicator rather than just slinging yourself a little bit of VXX. I could certainly see that. If you want just a fast and loose way to gauge what's going on out there in the term structure, you could do worse than keeping an eye on VXX. For all of you out there, listeners, maybe you're a little bit busy. Now you're the Vol Hub, though, so that'll certainly help with that, checking out the term structure. But if you want a fast and loose indicator of what's going on out there, VXX should be one you should definitely at least have in your quote list, in your watch list to keep an eye on during the day. All right, let's go out really quickly to the earnings front. Earnings season proper, as we track it, has pretty much come to an end. Doesn't mean the names have stopped, though, listeners. There's still a bunch popping off. This week, we had Intuit on Tuesday. We had Petco, Hormel Foods on Wednesday, Build-A-Bear and Victoria's Secret all on Wednesday. So you had all ends of the spectrum. Salesforce and Snowflake and Five Below. Thursday, we had Dollar General and Kroger and Big Lots and Land's End and Duluth Trading and Marvell. Today, we have everyone's favorite country restaurant, Cracker Barrel. Go out there and buy a $300 rocking chair while you're at it. So a lot of hot new reports coming off the presses, courtesy of our friends over there at Orat's Land. So yes, we are still crunching the numbers out there, listeners. Like yesterday, this was actually the 30th, we had Five Below. They popped off after the bell on the 30th. Again, they went into their announcement right around 161. They're pricing in 7.7%. They delivered 16%. So Five Below outperforming quite a bit. Let's see if their bargain store compatriot Dollar General did the same. They were popping off yesterday before the bell. 255.68 is where they were going into their announcement. They're pricing in 5.1%. They delivered 8.1%. So a little bit of extra juice out there as well. Now, of course, listeners, if we re-racked these numbers today, it would be a little bit of a different story. Obviously, your frame of reference is going to vary the returns out there. Let's go to Snowflake really quickly as well. This was a hot one. Remember, it doesn't seem like that long ago, listeners. Everyone was obsessed with Snowflake. Then it kind of fell off. Now it seems like it's maybe getting back again. Let's see how they perform this week. 30th after the bell was Snowflake. They went into the announcement right around 143. They were pricing in 12.1%. They delivered 3.7%, listeners. So Snowflake doing a whole heck of a lot of nothing. Let's see where they're hanging out right now. Actually, you know what, though? Since their announcement, they've rallied about $8. So again, frame of reference, listeners. And actually, they were even higher. They're off about $3 today. They got up to 154. So, wow, they were up about $11. So, yeah, again, frame of reference. If you had some long premium and you held on to it beyond the initial announcement period, you probably did all right out here in Snowflake. So, again, that just goes to show you how the frame of reference can change everything. We also have a bunch of names popping off coming up. We had Marvell and Ulta coming up this week. Next week, we have a whole bunch of names popping off as well. We have them all broken down for you over there on the website. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go. Click on the Options News and Articles tab. You can also find the earnings season report, which right now is hanging out at about 117%. We have adjusted a few of those numbers as we have more data points, with week 2 now falling to a still astronomical 199%. It's still the craziest week we've ever seen, but it's down from 205%. Week one is the only red week actually now, down to 85%, but it's still the whole season averaging out to 117%, still demonstrably north of the 92% average that we've been hanging out at for a while here. And new earnings trades as well, including new calendars and OKTA and new straddle there in SMAR. So check it all out. All those reports for you for free, theoptionsinsider.com, just because we like you folks. As we keep on rolling right on into the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everyone, welcome to the crystal ball, the portion of the show where we get weird, we get wild, we indeed get whimsical. And we also, coincidentally, have a question of the week, listeners, this week that ties in very nicely to our crystal ball. This expires in about 2 hours, so I don't think, it's not going to hit the network in time for you folks to vote after the fact. So hopefully that's why you should be following us at Options on Twitter, listeners, because you get to vote during the week. We always retweet these polls throughout the week, so in case you missed them, you'll get a chance to get in there. But our question of the week right now dovetails very nicely with our crystal ball. The question of the week is, we've seen volatility erode in recent weeks. Have we entered a new volatility regime, or is this just a blip on the radar? Quite simply, where will VIX close at the end of the year? We gave you 4 choices, listeners, around here. So where it was when we posted this poll back on Monday, in the 20 to 23 range, or higher than that, 2301 essentially to 26, or even higher than that, north of 26, or lower, back below 20. Listeners, I should also pay off our crystal balls for this week. And spoiler alert, none of us had it. Last time we did the show was myself and the meatball. I was looking at, we didn't predict though all the way out to today. So I revised it. I went out and predicted for 2 weeks after the show because we forgot we had a week off last week. So I went to 23 double, no joy there. And the Rock Lobster came in on oddities, and he played for you, Mark, and he guessed 2190 today. And alas, neither of those are actually, no, on spikes. 2190 is not looking as bad because we're back to about a 21.5 right now out there in spikes. That little bit of premium is serving him well. 1960. None of us had a teen handle in the crystal ball. So no winners this week. So we'll do a twofer because no one won. Let's go out to our guests first. Simon, we have a twofer question for you. First off, what is your vol prognostication for next week, obviously, on the show? And then B, for our question of the week, where do you feel Spike/VIX is going to close at the end of the year? In that 20 to 23 range, 23 to 26, north of 26, or below 20, sir? So a twofer for you.
Wow. So end of the year, we're getting pretty damn crazy.
I realize that's a lot for 5 a.m, sir. I apologize.
No problem. I'm going to go with I'm going to go with lower. I think we're going to head lower. I feel like a lot of the shenanigans that happened. You've had the Fed come in and do so much this last few months. I reckon that people are tired of that, and so I think we will end up slightly lower.
Interesting. And what's your vol guess for next week, sir?
For next week, let me just quickly check the hub. Let's see here.
There's no data, sir. You got to fly by your seat of the pants, right? That's how we do it here on the crystal ball.
Right. Okay.
There's no careful analysis.
Fair enough. So I reckon it will be 20.
Interesting. So 20 even for vol next week, and also picking lower below 20 for our crystal ball for the end of the year. Interesting. Mr. Meatball, same twofer for you. First off, where are you on our crystal ball poll? 20 to 23, 23 to 26, north of 26, or below 20 for VIX at the end of the year? And then B, what are you feeling for vol next week, sir?
Well, hey, hold the phone. What did I actually guess for the following Friday?
You guessed 2176, which I have not checked.
That doesn't sound like me because
I'm sorry. You guessed 2222. That's what you guessed.
2222. All right. Well,
that sounds like you.
Is on the 28th, which was the following Monday, we did close 2221. So pretty darn close.
Oh, a day or two off, but we'll take it. Sure. Why not?
Yeah. Well, close. You know, what I'll tell you is, I do think the VIX is going to meander lower into the end of the year. I mean, we're down on the day and they're just coming after it. For next Friday, I'm going to go crazy, Mark. I'm going to go crazy. Are you ready?
2222.
1881.
Okay, you're going for the teens. All right. I thought you were going to hang out of your 2222 just to mock me. All right. 1881, an interesting year, and also an interesting vol guess. Looks like we have a bunch of listeners in the live chat coming in. Options Queen, she's been pretty good. I think she had a teen handle. She might have had a teen. We'll have to check. Producers, go check. I think she had a 19 handle 2 weeks ago. She's been freaking spot on. You're going to clean us out of prizes here, Options Queen. Stop guessing. You're too good. 1930 this week for Options Queen. Option God 1870. Nichols 2010. Okay, yeah. 20.5 for Frank Z2313 1890. A couple teen handles in there. Interesting. All right, so that comes to me now. I won't reveal my vote for the poll because I hate to color these things. I'll talk about it after, if you like, out there. I've got 2 hours left on the poll front. In terms of where am I for next week, I've been trying to fight this downtrend last couple of weeks. It has not been working out well for me out there. Can something pop us back north of 20 by next week and keep us up there? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say 2133. So that's your accurate guess for next week, listeners. Then you've got the meatball on the downside at 1881 and Simon just being complete crazy cakes at an even 20. All right. That music means we've come to the end of another fun journey through the world of volatility views. Before we go, Mr. Simon, give us that URL again if folks want to go check out the newly minted Volatility Hub. Where should they go? What should they do, sir?
Oh, thank you. So it's theVolatilityHub.com.
There you go. Easy enough. You have a Twitter as well, don't you?
Actually, no, I don't. I do not have the Twitter.
Oh, someone Volatility Hub just followed us yesterday. I assume that was you. What are the odds that if Vol Hub launched on Twitter yesterday and was not you? Maybe the MIAX folks made it. I don't know. There you go. There is a Vol Hub on Twitter. Maybe follow them. Maybe they're imposters doing all sorts of dark things. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. In the meantime, though, the Volatility Hub is the place to go. And Mr. Meatball, where should they go if they want more vol information and education in their lives, sir?
Yeah, I'm running up VIX and volatility analysis every single day. Go to option.com, sign up for the VIX Edge blog, and you will become a more seasoned volatility trader.
There you go. Get a little bit of seasoning on your dino bones over there. Optionpit.com is the place to go. We got to get on out of here. That will conclude our broadcast week for all of you on-demand folks out there. If you don't want your broadcast week to end, you want to join us for Options Oddities in a little bit after Vol Views, where the Rock Lobster and I get up to all sorts of mischief, break down the week that was from a unusual activity perspective, and also talk us into a whole bunch of crazy nonsense he's trying to talk me into right now as we speak. Some flies, and I believe it was at RLX. Excuse me, we talked about an option block. We'll see. Did we put those on? We'll find out. A lot of fun to be had out there. 1x2s and Bitto. Check it out over there. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to get access to that. For all you cool cats hanging out there in the live right now, just hang out there. We'll pump some fun stuff in there for you. We'll be back in a little bit with Options Oddities. And then for everybody, back again next week, another episode of Volatility Views. Stay safe out there, everybody.
Volatility Views is brought to you by MIAX, one of the fastest, most efficient trading platforms in the world. MIAX is proud to bring you SPKEX volatility products. SPKEX options and futures are traded on the SPKEX Volatility Index, SPKE. offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction, all for ultra-low exchange fees. It's Volatility Reimagined. Learn more about spikes at miaxoptions.com/spikes. Options and futures involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.